Hello, welcome back to the Nook. I'm Daniel, and today I'll be reviewing this book here, The Sword Bearer by John White, which is book one in the Archives of Anthropos. So, before I get into the review, I'll just tell you about my history with the Archives of Anthropos. So, this book was done in the 80s, and it carried on into the 90s. There's 6 books, and my first experience with it was back in the 90s. I was in grade 6 or 7, and I ended up picking up the first book, The Sword Bearer, because I liked fantasy. And I realized this is very similar to Narnia, where kids from our world come into another world. In this case, it's called Anthropos. And so I had read this book in the 90s. I read the first book, I really loved it. I read the second book, the third book, the fourth book, and I could never, for some reason, I could never get into the fifth book, Quest for the King. I could never really finish it. And in my school library, the last book wasn't available, the sixth book. So what I'm going to say is, for this review, I'll just be talking about The Sword Bearer here, and I'm in the middle of the second book right now. And first of all, I mean, how did it hold up from the 90s? Reading a book from the 90s when I was a kid, reading it now in 2024 as an adult, The Sword Bearer was actually amazing. So I'll just read to you the back so you get kind of an idea about what it's about and just the idea of the plot. So it says, "It is John's birthday. He is 13. And what's more, it is on this day that his grandmother will tell him the mystery of his locket and of his parents. But it is not to be. Before he can find out, he is magically transported to the land of Anthropos, where he is startled to be hailed as the sword bearer, slayer of the goblin prince." So this book's full of prophecies and prophets and magic and goblins and other enemies. It's very classic fantasy. It almost feels in some ways like there's more lore to this than, say, Narnia, which is what it could be compared to. There are definitely similarities to Narnia. So like I said, like you saw in what you heard in the description there, John, who's 13, he gets transported to this other world, and he gets prophesied as the one known as the sword bearer, and he's been prophesied to destroy the Goblin Prince. So that's the basic setup, and a lot of this story, like the quest and everything that happened, I'd completely forgot about since the time when I first read it, to the point where it just felt really fresh. A lot of the plot points I wasn't really seeing. And honestly, another cool thing about this book is that it has a bunch of black and white illustrations, which I think is really neat, and they're really well done. They're very classic kind of 80s illustrations. So that's basically the quest. Is John is this sword bearer, he's in this other world, and he has to take down this goblin prince. But along the way, he meets talking animals, just like in Narnia, and you have lots of friends and foes. Um, yeah, and at its core, really, what this is it's a Christian allegorical story. So there's a lot of Christian truths. For example, there's this drink. It's a wine called the wine of free pardon. And basically, people that drink this, it gives them joy and it kind of restores them. And you think the wine of free pardon, it kind of sounds like in Christian theology, it'd be like the communion, right? The blood of Christ. So there's a lot of that. And there's a being known as the changer, which is basically like God in a sense. So it's really an allegorical story. So yeah, so going back to it, I mean, when I first picked it up, I thought, oh man, is this going to hold up? Is this going to be as good as I remembered it as a kid? And to be honest, it was. It was even better than I remembered it. And like I said, there's a lot I've forgotten about the story. There was a lot I've forgotten about just what happens and what the characters go through. There's a big plot twist I won't reveal. I'm keeping this spoiler free. But there was a big plot twist that happened at the end that I never saw coming, and it was really satisfying. And so just to give you a little heads up, the second book is looking like it's even better. I remember back when I was a kid reading the second book, the Gaul the Conqueror, I really liked it. But I think, yeah, this could be even better than the Sword Bearer. And I remember the other books were good too. So it'll be really cool when I do read the whole series, because I never finished book 5 and I never even started book 6. So it'll be interesting to see how book 5 is and book 6 and just the whole series. So if you're looking for a fantasy series that has some Christian truths, but it's also very well done, and the books aren't that long. I mean, The Sword Bearer was just under 300 pages. Each book is, 300, 400 pages. So if you're looking to get into something that has a lot of action and adventure and excitement, and it is, I forgot to mention, it is for younger. It's for like young adult, middle grade. So there's nothing sexual, it's not too violent. There's some pretty creepy stuff. The Some of the enemies, some of the actual illustrations are pretty creepy looking with some of the goblins and stuff. So maybe a really little kid wouldn't read it, but I think adults can enjoy it even though it is truly a young adult or a middle grade story. I think it's entertaining. Anyone could enjoy it. So I highly recommend The Sword Bearer, and I would say check out the series. I'm really excited to keep reading it, and what I'll do is I will review each book as I read them on the channel here. So I'll be reviewing Gall the Conqueror next week. So yeah, that's about it. So thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. And remember, you're always welcome at the Nook. Bye.